because it's now. So good morning and welcome to you for this session, and I'm very delighted that such a diverse group is over here. Uh, these events are a little tricky for many people to understand because we've been doing this for a while. I think 15th May we did something about future ready students and parents, which was a common thing with parents and students. We had eventually then some parents here, students went upstairs and so on. Then we did an event which is very interesting title, Can't Get Into IIT, Rejoice. And it was about why getting into IIT is a good thing, to why getting into IIT is perhaps not such a good thing, and why not getting into IIT is a better thing. And we had a whole day's discussion around these kind of things. We had a number of people who had expressed their opinions on these questions, and they were IITians of some standing. We had interesting visitors over there. There was somebody from US who had been an IIT Kanpur graduate. Interestingly, he was born in the IIT. So he didn't come to study. He was born in the IIT, studied in the IIT, went to the US like a proverbial good son, sold his company for $550 million and so on and so forth, and was there to share his story. And his conclusion was that being a storyteller is more important than having an IIT degree. So that was the essence. Then we had one on overcoming maths phobia. And the idea was that most people are afraid of maths. Normally it's maths teachers and maths educators and parents. And the interesting thing was we had two psychologists over there, because when you look at things, something like a fear of maths, we've been tuned to the idea that maths is difficult, and to a large extent there's a gender bias also. It's generally presumed that girls should be weaker in maths and so on and so forth. And now we are talking about becoming an independent educator, and I use the word teacherpreneur for it. The teacherpreneur is to distinguish it from other kinds of educational entrepreneurs. I took a lot of sessions on educational entrepreneurship and so on. But when we talk of educational entrepreneurship, we end up normally thinking of somebody who establishes an educational institution. So like Ashok Chauhan of Amity will be seen as an educational entrepreneur. Ashok Mittal of Lovely Professional University will be seen as an educational entrepreneur. These Guptas who have created KR Mangalam University is seen as that. GD Goenka is seen as that. But what I want to emphasize is the teacherpreneur. And I'm saying time has now come where teachers don't have to be at the mercy of somebody else to be able to reap the rewards of their work. And it's not an evolved thing, and I hope that a group like this will help in this becoming a reality. The analogies are very interesting. The first analogy is from the film industry. And this is very important because if you compare education to the film industry, people may get extremely irritated, the thoroughbred educators. But the big point that I want to compare is that in the early days of the film industry, everybody worked as employees for something called a studio. Whether it was Devanand or Dilip Kumar or whatever, they were salaried employees of certain studios. Even singers had to work as salaried employees, photographers had to work as salaried employee, because the thing was not sustainable on its own. Somebody took that risk of creating this thing. We've had the similar thing for education. Today, for example, you cannot imagine any film star working on a salary. I mean, you can forget giving a salary to Shah Rukh Khan. Even Siddharth Malhotra will not come on a salary. You forget anybody else. Same thing will happen with educators. It will be impossible to find educators who work on a salary. They will not work on a salary. They will work on some proportional part of the value that they are adding. This will happen when the additional mechanism which is being provided becomes less and less valuable. So for example, some of you are school teachers, I've been in higher education. Why do we join a certain institution? So when I joined IIT Kanpur, for example, why did I join IIT Kanpur? Because it had a good reputation, because it would have very bright students on campus, and we have Ashok sitting here, an example of a set of people who were there. And colleagues who would be equally accomplished. So if I was with a PhD, etc., from some, there were others from MIT and Caltech and here and there and so on. And the only way you could interact were that you were in close proximity in a certain campus. And that's how educational institutions build their reputation. Again, in the history of education, long ago, we talked about the Gurukul tradition, where you actually went in search of a guru. And even if you look at the history of India, I'm not much of an historian, but we know that various people came here looking for certain people with whom they wanted to learn. So, Huansang, Fahiyan, all of you have mobile phones? All of you have phones with touch screen? How does the touch screen work? Okay. See, now suppose you wanted to know how does the touch screen work and you are in class 11th. Yeah. No, वो तो आप जानते हैं. Now suppose you said I want to learn. What would you say? I am class 11th. I will now go to Kota, study for entrance exam, then go to engineering. Then first 2 years they'll teach me physics and chemistry. 4th year they will teach me something, and then 5 years later, 6 years later, I will know how a touch screen works, right? By that time, it will have been taught in a subject called history. It will not be taught in a subject called technology. It will say in history, once upon a time, like we say, once upon a time there were punch cards. They'll say once upon a time. But if you want to know it today, what would you do? You would go to Quora.com, say how do they work. You would go to Google, you would go to Wikipedia, and you will probably in a Wikipedia article find very nicely explaining the difference between resistive, capacitive, surface acoustic wave, everything that happens. And you can go back and back. So if you don't understand what is capacitive, you can go. So this is the model of recursive learning, that anything you want to learn, what is the next step? This is the step I don't know. So you said surface acoustic wave. I don't know what is an acoustic wave. So I go to that. That is the beauty of learning today. What you do need as a teacher is to be able, somebody who can navigate you through those difficult points, or sometimes which we call threshold concepts. That here is a concept. So when I say capacitance, I need somebody who can explain to me the difference between capacitance, resistance, inductance, etc. Then I really understand it. The issue is that the role of the teacher now is not to give you resources for the first time or keep the course controlled that this is the 3rd year, 4th elective that you will do, but help you navigate whatever exists and answer your questions in a specific way. So the thing about pedagogy, that you say that I want to know something, and then say what is the immediate preceding step to knowing that, and then what is the immediate preceding step till you get to the step which is next to you. And to me that is the new thing that is happening. This is the new pedagogy. And why the whole education is meaningless? Because all those pedagogical, they were great men, John Dewey, Piaget, everybody was great, Garnier, but they were all before the internet age. They were all before the mobile phone age. So their pedagogy was relevant for a situation like this. Or a little bit project-based learning or Montessori playway or whatever. But it has absolutely no. So this, I think, is a very, very important aspect in terms of driving. The other is the mistaken notion that educational institutions are established by authority. We talk about IITs with much glory, and I was part of the IIT in the days of glory, and I have great thing for IIT. But that was then, and it was one way. See, when we look at the world around us, there is a diversity. There is a diversity of flora, the diversity of fauna, there are large amounts of plants, there are large amounts of animals, various kind of things all coexisting. When it comes to education, we only see Harvard, MIT, IIT, whatever. How can the world have only 4 or 5 educational systems which are of importance or relevance? If we are 6 billion people living in different conditions, the educational needs and varieties will also be different. And that's another important aspect of it. But I want to share with you 2 very interesting stories of education initiatives led by individuals. One is a 100-year-ago story. 100 years ago means the person was born 100 years ago, 1914 or so. 102 years ago he was born. His name was, when he grew up, he was Professor Toru Kumon. And Toru Kyumon was a professor like everybody else in Japan, in I think Osaka University or wherever. And when his son grew up, his name was Takeshi or something, he wasn't doing so well in maths. And this fellow felt a little bit of a problem, like my son and he can't do maths, and therefore he started paying attention to the pedagogy. And he started creating worksheets for his son to make sure that he progressed in certain finite steps and moved upward. And this became known as eventually as the Kyumon method of teaching. We have Kyumon centers all over the world. It is present in so many different countries and so on. And I want to draw attention to the story to say that professors can do it. Professors have, of course, made companies like Google and so on and so forth. But on education also, and this our model of ignoring educators and looking at TSR Subramaniam to tell us what education should be is completely mistaken, completely wrong. And this is a very good example, and why I am saying it is a good example is because it is a teacherpreneur. He eventually made a huge business out of franchising Kyumon centers. And if you want to know what it means, just go and ask for a franchise of Kyumon. Till a few years ago, it was not available in India. Now, of course, it is in India in a few select places. But that's a 100-year story. More recently, there's another one-man show, which has done better than most of government efforts put together. And this is our Salman Khan. Not our film star Salman Khan, but the other Salman Khan, who originally is a Bangladeshi, is an MIT engineer and was in the finance world. And again, like this Toru Kyumon story is because he wanted his son to do well. Salman Khan's story is that there was a cousin of his he met, whose name was Nadira or something. He met her at a social function, and Nadira kind of says, Salman, why I'm not able to do maths. I'm not able to cope with maths. And Salman writes in his book, this book is called One World Schoolhouse. You must get it, it will be available for free as a PDF on the internet. If you want a paper copy, it costs you a couple of ₹100, quite affordable. And when he talked to her, he said, this girl looks quite intelligent to me. Why is she not able to do maths? And then he found the same issue, that what are the stumbling blocks, and using technology of the time, he started having a webcam conversation with her. And he then found that when he's having a live conversation with her, again, things were not moving. Again, much progress was not happening. And the reason, interestingly, is that very often the learner is sort of awed by the professor because there's a big gap between what the learner knows and this MIT guy, etc., is moving at a certain pace. There was a big gap, and therefore live interaction was not working. What Salman did later, he made some YouTube videos some videos of this and put it on YouTube. But the advantage was the moment it was a video, this girl could go back and forth. And therefore her learning improved. And then she shared this with other people, and others also started doing, and this movement started growing. One day, Bill Gates, who was looking for some material for his son for maths, stumbled upon these videos. These videos were not great, but this is the first time somebody had addressed that problem as a person who was knowing the subject. And Bill Gates was so fascinated, he got his son to use those. And then, as I say, rest is history. Once Bill Gates got into it, there was a lot of funding, then Google got. Today, Khan Academy is a great example of what the future of education is. And it's available on your mobile. It's available for free. And it does not only maths, it does many other subjects, including American history, SAT, CAT, all kinds of stuff. So what we now need, again, as I said, it's very interesting. So we need educators who can teach with the Khan Academy. So the point is this, that earlier educators taught using textbooks. And why it is important to understand the role of educator, and this has been a very big mistake over here, and very happy that we have there people from EMPC. People mistook education for broadcasting. Broadcasting at low cost to large number of people was seen as a great solution to the educational problem. I remember when we were young, radio aayega to kisan kheti karte karte radio se seekh lega. Then TV, then this thing, then internet, EduSat, all these kind of things came. You see, the point about learning is removing the cognitive conflicts in the minds of the learner, which happens after the content has been brought. So broadcasting is a very good first step. For some people, it may be enough, because once they've got it, they can understand everything by themselves. So Ramanujam doesn't need anything more. Even statement of a problem is good enough. A letter from Hardy is good enough, and so on. But everybody, if he really wants to learn, has to remove the last cognitive block in the road to learning. And this is where this becomes very important. And what I'm kind of driving at now today is that tomorrow's learning to our mobile apps. Khan Academy is a great example for maths and many subjects, and Duolingo is a very good example for learning languages. There's a very recent app, very interesting one, called MathPix. Now MathPix, it's again free, you just write an equation on a piece of paper, put that camera, take the picture, it will give you the answer to that equation solution. So many of these things which were being done are today doable by mobile phones, apps, and so on. And therefore, this is where we are looking at a new thing coming in. So this is the thing, and this is where people like Toru Kumon or Salman Khan or whatever, I'm calling teacherpreneurs, and I'm just giving that to give you an idea that the rest and the best is yet to be born. So tomorrow's thing it can be something inspired by Avikshit or Anupam or Payal or whoever, because this is a brand new area where we can just get started. And the big good news is all the support mechanism is available. See, there was a time when if you wanted to make a website, you had to write in HTML, this, that, all the code, everything, then came HTML4. Today you don't have to do anything. There are many, many tools available. You just put up. For example, the one site I use to support this event is a WordPress thing. So I have something called mmpen.wordpress.com, where everything that I get, I just keep updating. So I just thought that Abhishek will be the expert for 3D printing for my session 18th. I've just updated. I didn't have to go to any IT department, tell them, then this thing. And after I've updated it, then I've told Abhishek that you are our expert for the 18th on 3D printing. Right? So this is how things are changing, and therefore the potential. The other thing that is very interesting is that this whole idea of a prescribed curriculum taught over this thing by a regulated body is meaningless. Everybody is a potential teacher. If you know something better than others, or which many more don't know, you are a teacher. You may teach only 5 minutes of stuff, doesn't matter. That's all that you teach. But if those 5 minutes of stuff is valuable to somebody, it's valuable. And I think that's another very important aspect. And one of my key statements I often make this is that, who taught this country how to use the mobile phone? All of you use the mobile phone? Was there anything, Center for Mobile Phone Training with additional secretary as Director General? No, but literacy mission, we have that, and still we are not literate. So the point was, did you have to go someplace, get a certificate? Only when you have the certificate, you can buy a mobile phone, because if you don't know how to use the mobile phone and you get a mobile phone, it can be very dangerous for the nation. No such thing happened. So why should I have to go to some place to learn something, and only AICT will tell you, and it will tell you that you must have 8 acres of land to learn this, whether you know the subject matter or not, that's a different issue. So this is another aspect. So because everybody has a mobile, everybody is learned, that means everybody knows how to learn. And what I'm trying to say is that the key step, and this is why India has been so successful. India has been so successful because we have a large population, and even when 90% of the people are maimed by the government, that 10% or 5% is enough to provide leadership. And I say this very often to my audience, that when Bill Gates and Paul Allen created Microsoft, could they have ever imagined that the third CEO will be from India? And not 180 years after Bill Gates' death. Bill Gates is very much around, right, in his lifetime. And this is not a company in some forsaken place where suddenly they've come into wealth and they have no knowledge base. They have institutions to which all aspire to go, study or teach. Now in that country, Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer and Satya Nadella. So it also means that intrinsically, in spite of whatever may happen, there are people who are world class and who somehow created an educational experience for themselves which was world class and competitive and best and so on. And Satya Nadella is not a flash in the pan, and I cannot say he has Venus in the 12th house with Jupiter also in the 12th house and Mercury in the lug, because very soon Sundar Pichai also went into Google. So there is a set of things. There is something in India where in this churn there are people who are intrinsically self-motivated learners or leaders or whatever, and under the right circumstances they are able to move on. And all that we are saying is we can scale this rather than letting it being incidental, and therefore if we can get more and more people both to teach and to learn through these methods, this will become very interesting. So that's the key story. I don't think we have the answers right now. We have only examples and possibilities. But what I do see that in a couple of months, and most of our plans, themes are designed with that in mind, people who stick around, whether they come to every seminar or they're part of the community, because we operate through WordPress and through meetup.com, this will happen, and those who really want to do it will be able to do this. There's one very interesting aspect about entrepreneurship. That is the aspect of selling. Selling is a word which is anathema to most of us. And this is a very funny kind of society we have created where nobody wants to be a salesman. At the most, you are happy to be a marketing manager, but you don't want to be a salesman. And this is a big kind of a tragedy in terms of misconceptions that have been created. I remember that when I was in school, we had a bunch of bright students, and one of them who was very bright went to IIT and IIT Kharagpur, and after that he got a job in IBM. And once I met him on the train when I was coming from Delhi to Kanpur, and I was coming back to Kanpur, he was going on to Allahabad, and we were in the same compartment by chance, and I said, so I asked him, so you are with IBM, that I know, but what do you do? And he says, I look after marketing. And for me it was a big letdown. I thought he would be doing R&D, creating new computers, doing this. And I said, but you were among the brightest of our lot, so what are you doing in marketing? And then for the first time I realized, I have no hesitation, for the first time I realized, he said that marketing is the most important function. IBM believes they can sell the computers, what's the big point about making them? I think this is the one important part that we need to understand. That actually every teacher has to be a salesperson. Because forget the commercial part. He or she has to sell the subject matter of what that person is going to teach you. Why am I teaching you Pythagoras theorem? Why am I teaching you how to find the third side of a triangle given two sides and the inverted angle? Where are you going to use this? So the point is, because we don't sell our courses, the communication skills also get reduced. And in some sense, whether you sell for money or for persuasion or for mindset or for creating a movement, this is one of the very, very important aspects. I have not put deliberately in my list of topics because it may turn people off in some sense, because they're still, but I think this is very important. I really want to share with you, if somebody can volunteer to say that I will take a course on how to sell. Because the only person, oh great, we solved the problem. Otherwise, I do know this fellow, Shiv Kheda, and I actually attended his program, but Shiv Kheda will never do it without money. And now we can, so Ashok Kamal is a, no, but we would have gotten, so I know him and I've attended his seminars, he knows me well. But the point is, I think it's very good if Ashok is doing, because he's an IIT graduate, accomplished person, MBA, everything, and he understands now the context in which I am saying that selling is an essential skill for a educator, if he wants to be a teacher trainer, if he wants to go by authority. You see, the big shift that has happened is, so far education is based on authority. When you get your degree, what does the Vice Chancellor say? By virtue of the authority vested in me as Vice Chancellor of this university, I command to you this and this thing, right? He doesn't say, you and I have spent time together. We argued, we debated, we enjoyed, we agreed to disagree, and so on and so forth. And now you have become a worthy professional or a worthy young man or whatever, authority. And everything, people say, are you NAC recognized? Are you UGC recognized? And none of the authorities have any idea why they are doing this. no authority in India is able to say why a certain thing is being done. Why is maths compulsory for all students in class 10? Nobody is able to answer. It's just that somehow I think Lugani wanted his books to be sold or whatever. Some such reason is there. There's no fundamental reason. And also in this country, when at the very, see, most people think it's a false degree, but even if we accept the original degree of the Prime Minister, he's a third divisioner, right? That's the original degree. And the Education Minister obviously has no degree yet. So the whole issue is that in this thing, we suddenly worry about marks and this and that. It's a completely kind of a meaningless thing. So anyway, we've got one very interesting volunteer. So we have both father-son team volunteering for some of our future things. What is the time like? 10:40. So what I'll do is now I will straight jump to requesting Payal to talk about a story which we did. So we started doing this somewhere around 2000. Please come in. And we want to say that this is not something in the future. So when we say teacherpreneur or independent educators, it is not something in the future. It's something that we have actually done and done quite successfully. And she'll tell that story. It is in the concept of English language teaching, which of course means that maths teaching follows, computing teaching follows, other things follows, and so on and so forth.